a wonderful place existed.
The Athenians called it the Acropolis. Free expression, ethics, art, philosophy. The Acropolis heralded the democracy. But if I told you the Acropolis has returned. Acropolis News. News from the Acropolis.
The theme of today's Trevor Report is that the United States has developed into the he said, she said part of divorce or civil war or whatever you want to call it, and that's basically what's going on right now. There has been a weaponization of the Department of Justice and under the Biden administration against dissidents in the country. There was a weaponization of the FBI against dissidents during the Trump administration. Trump was a dissident and the FBI was being weaponized against him. There was a weaponization of the IRS under the Obama administration, which was used to unfairly target conservative organizations, presumably because they were conservative. And look, fundamentally, I'm not a conservative because at the end of the day, conservatism, the way we see it, the way we envision it, is a product of Whig history, and I'm not a proponent of Whig history. I think Whig history, along with the Hegelian dialectic, has been taken to the extreme, and it's caused a lot of problems. The problems that are leading to the problems of the future that are just going to be even more terrible. But basically, in November 2021, Project Veritas was like, okay, so we have in September, I've covered the story before. Basically, in September of 2021, Project Veritas received they received Ashley Biden's, Joe Biden's daughter's diary. They couldn't authenticate it, so they did the responsible thing and turned it to the police. Fair enough. Works perfectly, right? And then they were arrested a few months later. They were arrested because they obtained Ashley Biden's diary illegally. Now, that's a bit sketchy because journalists unless they actively seek information illegally. If someone obtains information illegally and gives that illegally obtained information to a journalist, the journalist is not liable for obtaining illegal information, because that is a stupid thing to be liable for. That is a stupid thing to be responsible for. It essentially means that any, say, Fed can just say, "Oh, here you go, journalist. Here's some information I acquired illegally," and then the journalist can be arrested. It's a stupid standard, but it's becoming the standard. Or at least it became the standard with Project Veritas. They sued, and over a few months of litigation, they won. They're still doing the processes of things, but they've basically won. Because Project Veritas actually never lost a case. They've settled one, And as James O'Keefe of Project Veritas put it, it was the worst mistake I ever made in my life, because he actually wasn't guilty of anything, but pretty much. So basically now, and there was a Daily Mail article, an exclusive Daily Mail article that was circling around. Perhaps I should have got it up. My apologies. That essentially said that that Project Veritas was under fire by the Department of Justice, not for obtaining the diary legally, but having the diary in general. Which, yikes. You know, I'll include it in the description of this Trevor report, if I remember. Oh, yeah, also, this Trevor report is going up about an hour and a half later than it usually does. I'm on break, and this means it gives me more time to write for the premium stuff. So, my bad, my apologies. 8:30 kind of works better in general, maybe 9 o'clock. But yeah, Hillary Clinton was asked if she would run in 2024, which I am very excited for. Not because I'm an insurrectionist. Why would I ever vote for the party of insurrection? That is the Democrat Party. But fundamentally because, well, you know, third time's the charm. You know, I think it would be really funny if Hillary Clinton if Hillary Clinton runs and she doesn't win again. Right, she fails for a third time. You know, I think that'd be really funny. But she's been humbled. She's learned her lesson. Unfortunately, we the American people have successfully humbled the most egotistical woman on the planet. So, yeah. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton says she will not run for president in 2024, sending speculation for a possible rematch with Donald Trump 8 years later. In an interview with the Financial Times, Clinton said she expects President Joe Biden to run for re-election and does not want to get in the way of that. She says, quote, "No, out of the question." End quote. She said when asked about 2024, "First of all, I expect Biden to run. He certainly intends to run, and it would be very disruptive to challenge that." Just one problem. Biden fell off his bike. They put him on basically his handlers, as it were, put him on a bike in order to demonstrate and prove beyond a shadow of a doubt just how young he is. And well, that didn't work, obviously. And he fell on his bike, because you cannot make a 90-year-old man look young. It doesn't work. Sorry, 90 plus. Okay, Joe Biden is literally a member of the silent generation. Okay, it's just not possible to make him look tall. It's just not possible. And you can see it in the way he talks and speaks and everything. He's just not a young person. You cannot make him look young, because when you make him look young, he will do this. And people are calling it, the fall of his the fall that will define his presidency. The fall that will define his presidency. You should have seen the corporate press articles that were being released about this. They were saying that the chain was rusty, and that's why he fell or whatever. So it's like, okay, but who put a 90-year-old man on a faulty bike? No, he fell because he's old. Okay, and look, watch how he fell. He doesn't even fall while riding, which would be understandable. You know, you bump into a rock that's too big, you smash face first. You know, I've done that a few times. They don't even. This NBC clip doesn't even show how he falls. Basically, he's just standing there, greeting the press or whatever, and then he falls over. Like he's just standing, and then he just, and then he falls. It's quite remarkable, actually, but we do have to move on. People who are pro-murdering babies cover themselves up in blood and then duct tape themselves their hands to baby dolls, and then after that they duct tape their hands to dolls that are babies in order to insinuate that that if I'm not allowed to murder this baby, then I am a slave to this baby. Which, yes, and so are the fathers. They're also when you have a kid, your duty and responsibility is to take care of that child. And yes, you can obfuscate that responsibility. You can give that baby up for adoption. You can ask your parents for help taking care of them if you're the kind of woman who's career oriented. But anyway, so they covered themselves up with blood and dolls, and they were doing it outside of Amy Coney Barrett's home. Now, in the United States, it is a felony to protest outside of a Supreme Court justice's home because it would interfere with their ability to properly do a ruling. It's intimidation, and Justice Kavanaugh was nearly had him and his entire family kidnapped because they're not getting the memo, and no one's arresting them because if you are pro murdering babies in this country, you have the correct politics. Anyway, let's continue. Pro-choice activists protested outside Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett's house over the weekend, donning fake blood-stained clothes and holding baby dolls. The blood looks pretty real. It looks like real blood, but all right. The protesters marched to the Judges Fall Church VA home Saturday and held signs, including one with a coat hanger that said "not going back." Which just like to point out that the argument for abortion is the same argument for slavery, like the exact argument for slavery. My property. This is my property, and I will do what I will with my property. It's kind of ridiculous. And here's what a 15-year-old said. This is what Amy's America looks like. One protester, Ariana, 15, said in a video the group posted. Children will be forced to give birth. Women will be silenced. Women will be invalidated. Women will be told they are less than. Which, if it comes to the case of murdering babies, based. But aside from that statement that's obviously going to be clipped out of context eventually, look, I really hate this argument. Children will be forced to give birth. Now, this is sort of a Mott and Bailey. When they say children, they mean women. Like there's not a lot of women under the age of 18 that give birth. When they say this, they mean women. Right, and when they say forced to give birth, what they're saying is if a woman goes through the natural biological process of giving birth to a human being with rights, then that is a violation of their rights, and because they're forced to do it, right? The natural process that if left unhindered will continue seamlessly, right? That's the force. The invasive medical procedure, right? Where and I'm not talking about like morning after pills or whatever. I mean like when they take a vacuum and they shove it up your vagina after they take a pair of tongs and they rip the limbs out of the baby one by one, and then they crush the skull, and then proceed to use the vacuum to suck out the baby's gray matter and blood, bones, things like that. Abortion has actually become a lot more gross. Like it's just a tad bit more gross than a barbed wire hook, and somehow more barbaric. So if the woman is holding a sign with a barbed wire hook saying "not going back," well, we'd be going back to something less barbaric. So, yeah. Oh well. But the point is, these are bad arguments. Okay, they are bad arguments fundamentally because they're taking an extreme view of Rousseau's social contract. And this isn't a philosophy show. That's the American Grakus podcast. All right, which is behind a paywall, so I can dedicate, and it's on my own website, and I can dedicate more time to it, etc., etc., etc. All right, but essentially, long story short, in the social contract, it's basically like, society is evil, and women don't actually care about babies. They're just habituated into caring about babies after being forced to give birth to them and forced to take care of them. There's actually, when it comes to giving birth, there's no force. It is a natural biological process. All right, and let me tell you my stance on abortion. This is after listening to both pro and anti-abortion activists. Okay, I found the anti-abortion stance to be a lot more compelling. I found the anti-abortion stance to be rooted more in reality. I found the anti-abortion stance to be rooted in a lock-in framework, which I agree far more with than a Rousseauian framework like the abortion framework. Also, reading Rousseau made me hate the French. I just thought I'd throw that out there. I didn't hate the French, but then I read Rousseau, and then I hated the French. I don't actually hate the French, but you know, as it were. Fed hikes its benchmark interest rates by 0.75% percentage point, the biggest increase since 1994. Basically, the federal government is trying to end inflation about 3 multi-trillion stimulus check, about 2 stimulus checks too late. The government, Biden's government, literally, like, you can sort of see the trends, right? Biden had his upswings of popularity right around the time he was literally bribing people with money, and then downswings the minute people, like, immediately after people got the check. All right, and now everything is more expensive. Okay, and Joe Biden is doing everything he possibly can to make gas prices as expensive as humanly possible. All previous Trevor reports linked down below in the description. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, then you can click the hyperlink and go to the website to get to the show notes, etc., etc., etc. But fundamentally, this is a complete failure of the Biden administration. Well, actually, you could argue this is this is a success of the Biden administration, because you could only give the excuse of incompetence so far and so long till it eventually just becomes malice. If you want a solution to inflation, stop printing money. This is very simple. Okay, let's and go back to the gold standard. Anyway. Let's continue. Texas Republicans declare Biden election illegitimate despite evidence. Now this is in Reuters. This is an opinion article, but it's in the news section, and people do this all the time. It's annoying, and to be fair, okay, it's actually pretty easy to do. Okay, it's actually the entire origin of why I created Full Context and Just News. Okay, over on the acropolisnews.com. Go check it out, by the way. But anyway, let's read it. Washington, June 19, Reuters. Republicans in Texas formally rejected Joe Biden's election in 2020 as illegitimate, and voters in statewide convention that wrapped up this weekend on party reforms that calls homosexuality an abnormal lifestyle choice. I actually paid a lot of attention to Texas because a lot of interesting things are happening to the Texas electorate in general. So I've been paying attention to it a little bit more these past couple weeks. But I don't remember that being said. What I do remember being said is that is that they were really harping on abortion. The Texas GOP were against murdering babies, which I too am against murdering babies. I don't know. The party's embrace of it. Here is this unfounded Okay, that's the key word there. Electoral fraud allegations in a bedrock Republican state came as a bipartisan congressional committee seeks to definitively and publicly debunk the false idea that Biden did not win the election. Now, I've covered this article from Times Magazine over and over again. It's called "The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign That Saved the 2020 Election." It's called it's from Time Magazine in February 2021, I believe. Then there's the stuff that's coming from 2000 mules, and they're using, by the way, the same data method that the January 6 hearings used in order to arrest the people who are at the Capitol, taking photos and lumping the people that were at the Capitol on a tour that were let in by the police with the same people that rioted for like 20 minutes and then left when they were told to leave. You know, no guns, no one had any gun charges, but insurrection. I'm doing air quotes with my hands for people who are listening on Spotify, by the way. But this is essentially a bunch of nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense. Okay, you either believe that the F curves are pro democracy, or you believe that there were people committing ballot harvesting and ballot dumping in multiple states. Okay, which there could be a halfway point, which was that the 2020 November presidential election, okay, this is a super controversial take, I know, was the very first election where we had universal mail-in voting, and corrupt people used that as a mechanism to do corrupt things. Okay, we had that woman that was arrested in Texas because she was given some money to do some ballot harvesting for a Republican in Texas. Like, it's like this. Okay, there was a lot of things, a lot of problems, all across the board. And what we can certainly do is we could stop treating 50% of the country as illegitimate moral agents. First off, Reuters, it's not unfounded. To the people who believe it, they believe there's a sufficient amount of evidence. Okay, there is a website that catalogs the 2020 election. It's called hereistheevidence.com, and it's mostly just a bunch of corporate press articles. It's just corporate press articles and corporate press voter tally changes. Like, the people who believe that the 2020 election was stolen and the people who believe the 2020 election was legitimate, they both seem to just read the corporate press. That seems to be what's happening here, rather than a more neutral claim that because there was an opportunity for corruption, a bunch of corrupt people did a bunch of corrupt things, and what we need to do is we need to weed out this corruption. But corruption is good for the corrupt, so take all of that with what you will. Let's continue. Rumble proposes an open source content moderation policy and process to improve transparency and put creators first. I love Rumble. I use Rumble all the time. I'm probably going to end up switching to Rumble infrastructure pretty soon because they're just doing great work, and I tend to vote with my wallet. First phase of a content creator design moderation process will help the video sharing platform stay true to its mission. As it continues to grow, changes will be incorporated into terms of use after feedback from creators and users. Today, the video streaming platform Rumble announced the first phase, today being June 17, 2022, first phase of an updated content moderation process designed by creators and anchored in transparency. The proposed moderation policies were designed by leading Rumble and Locals creator Robert Barnes and David Freiheit. I think that's how you pronounce that. Both of whom are also accomplished attorneys. Under the proposed policies, content creators will be able to express themselves to interested audiences within the limits of the law and without harassment, while ensuring a consistent and transparent process as the platform continues its rapid growth. Rumble welcomes feedback on both proposed policies from the other creators and users, which it will consider before implementing the new policies as part of the platform's terms of use later this year. Now, there's one little thing when it comes to this. I actually don't mind getting mean comments. I actually like fighting with people on the internet. Fighting with people on the internet's very, very fun for me. But it's just one of those things where I've gotten mean comments before. I've gotten mean comments all the time on BitChute, and I'm just like, oh, someone engaged with my content. Oh, well, on with my day then. And it's just one of those. It's just one of those things where I deal with it. The only reason I stopped really uploading my stuff on BitChute is that I ended up having to upload things on BitChute multiple times in order for the upload process to just work normally. So it kind of got to a point. And then plus there was less and less user engagement with BitChute because, to be honest, BitChute's kind of a terrible platform, and so I just kind of abandoned BitChute because it's like, oh well, on with my day then, and I suffered no losses from it because everything I've been building for the past year and a half is expanding to a level that I can feel proud of, and I look forward to be more and more proud of it in the future. Anyway, I'm going to include this in the link in the description because so far I've been getting a lot of right-wing takes on people in my country consider the right-wing takes on the Jan 6 hearing, but the problem is all of the left-wing takes that I've been hearing have just been a bunch of culty, secular Catholicism, woke, left kind of talking points. So I found this video talking about the Jan 6 hearings. It's definitely from a leftist perspective, but it's also not a culty left. And you know what? I think people should not be in an echo chamber, because being in echo chambers is very boring. It's very boring when a bunch of people just agree with you on the internet all the time. It's very boring. But anyway, I'm gonna end that there. In the meantime, my name is Trevor Brown. You just watched the Trevor Report. Do click the Linktree down below in the description that I was forced to make because Linktree banned my Linktree for opposing black nationalism. So I made my new one down below in the description. The Trevor Report is sponsored by Acropolis News Network, the world's first fully independent media organization powered by peer-to-peer advertising, Liberty platforms, and cryptocurrency. On theacropolisnews.com, we have a different standard of journalism. We adhere to the Nicomedean ethics as outlined by Aristotle, and unlike a traditional show, what we have at Acropolis News Network is a decentralized network of fully independent online content creators. You can go to where to watch/chat/support over on theacropolisnews.com, where we have a bunch of information where you can contact Acropolis News Network and even engage with the wider audience of the Acropolis. And we also have a premium subscription, and with this premium subscription you can get access to a ton of cool features. Cool features like an entire series where not only do I break down the best arguments of critical race theory, I also go over how to defeat those arguments and a counter-narrative specifically for integrationists in order to counter the cultural colonization that critical race theorists engage in. I also have this article that I just put out there where it's basically I analyze time travel as a concept, and I go through and I draw on Michael Oakeshott and Aristotle in order to navigate a way through determining the validity of time travel without going into the science of it, and actually going into why going into the science of it is kind of pointless. So if you want to check those out, do get a premium subscription, and in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the show.
Acropolis News. News from the Acropolis.
All of you brilliant viewers out there, my name is Trevor Brown. I am the editor-in-chief of Acropolis News Network because I can give myself whatever name and title I want because I own it. You could go to theacropolisnews.com, or you could go to ThisJustTrevor on whatever Liberty platform is your choice. You know, except for the ones I'm not on because I haven't seen them pretty much.
Acropolis News. News from the Acropolis.